8:27 exactly. Welcome back. Lovely to have you on the show this morning. Our first guest is on standby, and that's you, Dr. Tshepo Mvulane. We're talking about Black Wednesday. Now, on the 19th of October 1977, the apartheid government banned several black consciousness organizations. These were organizations they deemed a threat to the regime at the time, and included in this was the banning of several media, including newspapers. And that many years later, we are now weighing in on Black Wednesday, commemorating this day, and also how do we as media go forward in terms of such issues. Good morning and welcome to the show, Dr. Tshepo Mvulane.
Salam alaikum to all your viewers and to yourself in the studio.
Wa alaikum assalam. So good to be talking with you once again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Black Wednesday is happening tomorrow. It's being commemorated. I also see that Azapo is having a webinar tonight. And obviously, in commemoration of Black Wednesday, they have headlined it as Reflections on Black Solidarity, and they are opening this invitation to the entire public. Speakers are Pearl Lutuli and Strike Tokwane. And for people who are wanting to be a part of this discussion, they can go to Azapo's website and get all of the webinar's details and sign in for the webinar. It's happening tonight at about 6:30, I think. But let us now weigh in on Black Wednesday. Does it still have relevance all those years later?
Thank you very much for your introduction. Just as a disclaimer, I am not an affiliated member of any Black consciousness movement. So just so that we have that on record. Now.
Thank you indeed for that correction. Do appreciate it.
And again, on the announcement you made about the webinar tonight, it's not 6:30, it's going to be 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Okay, good. Thanks for that correction.
Okay,
So,
let's get to the meat. Let's get to the meat of your question. Is it relevant 44 years later? First and foremost, we need to move from the premise that South Africa is having a very highly contested historical narrative as a nation. Now, Black Wednesday is actually the wrong name, and it needs to be corrected, but for the sake of carrying our viewers so that we don't leave people behind. Last night, around 10 p.m., President Tiani Laibon Mabasa, he's one of the leaders of the Black Consciousness Party. He tweeted to say, and I quote him, "There is no Black Wednesday on the BC calendar," BC being the Black Consciousness calendar. The BCM has consistently rejected the project or narrative of the apartheid regime or the press to use black in a negative sense. We did not surrender to the regime on the 19th of October 1977. The press that had wanted to call black people Afro coalition coined the term Black Wednesday. But we called it, and this is what is important. They say they called it Black Solidarity Day. And I want to stop there. Yeah. So we can continue with this concept of Black Wednesday, but let's understand that the people themselves, the Black consciousness themselves, they refuse to continue with this name because they say it's the press, which was the apartheid press at the time, that gave them this name. They actually call themselves the Black Solidarity Day.
Okay, now, when we look at this day, Besides banning independent media in an attempt to hide horrendous acts by the regime at the time, authorities acted very quickly after coverage of, very sadly, Steve Bantu Biko's murder in September the same year. And we all know this goes down in the annals of history. I don't think there's not a South African who is not aware of this, that Biko was one of the leaders of the Black Consciousness Movement and was arrested in August that year under the Terrorism Act.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. So, if we want to contextualize where does this so-called Black Wednesday fit in the narrative of struggle politics, it all rotates around the arrest of what was called the SASO or BPC trial, which was Seth Cooper and Ahmed, as they would say when the apartheid regime quoted them. So they had that trial, and that trial would bring Steve Biko for the first time to the public. And this is where the trial backfired. They thought they were going to make these Black consciousness activists look bad. Steve Biko became a star. And basically, we know subsequent to that, he would be arrested, and later on, he would be assassinated on the 12th of September, 1977. Now, if we keep to the date, Steve Biko died on the 12th of September, 1977. His funeral is on the 25th of September, 1977. Black Wednesday, or so-called Black Wednesday, happened on October 19, 1977. Now, if you follow it, you pick up that the theme really runs on Black consciousness, social politics, of course, you know, a year earlier to this was the 1976 student uprising against Bantu education. And so you can pick up that the lull that the two bodies had committed, ANC and PAC, when they were banned, that is the period in which this all happened. And it's interesting that we only named September as Biko month, and yet it actually goes right through these months, up until October.
Okay, let's fast forward then. Let's go to the 22nd of October 2011, which is actually 34 years after the Black Wednesday, the Protection of State Information Bill, also referred to as the Secrecy Bill. This was passed in the National Assembly. We're talking 22nd October 2011. And this was a huge step backwards in the advancement of democratic principles. Furthermore, the bill contradicted certain constitutional provisions which promotes access to information. This then definitely ties in or talks directly to the question of recent threats to media freedom.
Yes. So let's remind ourselves in the context of the media. The newspapers that was banned as part of the 18 or /19 organizations which were linked to the Black Consciousness Movement was the Daily World and the Weekend World. And of course, there was Minister Bears Nodel's Christian Institute, Pro Veriet. They also had a news outlet that was banned because, they were in solidarity with the Black Consciousness Movement. Now, the secrecy bill takes us exactly to why those people were banned, or why those public outlets, media outlets were banned. That, they were actually speaking truth to power. They were exposing the regime, for the acts that they were doing, that, under, of course, what we now would call legalized apartheid. I mean, if you follow, the secrecy bill is really a cousin, if anything, to those those acts that were passed between the 50s and the 60s, which was basically to oppress, you know, people that were anti the apartheid regime. So the secrecy bill has really taken us back, and we would remember that somewhere along the way we had black journalists wanting to revive themselves, which was taken again from this same script that they're not going to be silenced. They will speak truth to power, and they will expose a spade and call a spade a spade. So yes, the secrecy bill was really bad for the democracy of this country and everything else that progressives stood for.
Okay, let's now talk about the current situation we're in. South African media now do face further threats to their independence. Issues around significant job cuts across the sector, very especially print media, threats from the public and private people who are held to account, as well as, and this is a big one, as well as growing misinformation from untrustworthy platforms and social media. Worrying, is it not?
Yeah, look, I think the media space in South Africa is at a conundrum. Um, you know, the, the battle between private, so-called, independent media and mainstream media is a fascinating conversation to have. And of course, behind all of this is capital, because that is the final arbiter of who decides who has power, The one that can fund you is really a dictator at the end of the day. So we really have a problem in terms of the the bad way in which our media is currently under fire. Yes, it's true. There are cases where media is used as propaganda. This is nothing new. There are cases, of course, where people are paid, to write certain positions in papers to suit particular narratives.
Absolutely. Right.
And of course, social media has just escalated all of this. Because I mean, there is no censorship, unless of course, Facebook and the owners of it don't agree with your policies. But I think we are in a very exciting time, and I think all problems can be looked at as programs that needs to be addressed. And I think, again, journalists, this is a huge, huge task for journalists. Their integrity, their ethics, because at the end of the day, they are the fourth estate. The society still needs to look up to them to actually expose and assist them in terms of guiding them with information. And I think we it's not as bad at this point, but I think we really need to just zone in and curb some of these factors that can mess up what should be reliable sources of reliable information for the public.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, I do wish I had more time to unpack further, but perhaps another time we can talk again. And you raised a crucial point there when you spoke funding and also the issue around journalistic integrity, because we as journalists can be very easily swayed, we can be biased towards a certain position or a certain party, depending on our own backgrounds. So it is absolutely imperative that journalists do act in the highest of integrity when they're covering stories.
Yes, Ben. I just want to say as we close, people must feel free to please go to literature and not rely on just what people are saying on Facebook and all these other platforms. There is massive literature available on Black Wednesday. I mean, I'm just going to give you just two. The Black
Sure.
Consciousness Reader, which came out in 2017, is available in stores. And we also have Biko Live, which is contesting the legacies of Steve Biko, edited by Andile Ngutama and Nigel Gibson. It came out in 2008. And if you did not read the Sunday Independent, there are two articles. One written by Opa Ngwenya, The Struggle Against Forgetting, on Black Wednesday. And F. Cooper. F. Cooper wrote on Black Wednesday signifies apartheid regime's response to our commitment to liberation. It's all available. People must please be patient with these kind of things and read for themselves and interrogate the details for themselves. It's so important to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed, and I think I'm going to try and track Seth Cooper down to get his view on the issue of Black Wednesday as well. So thank you so very much for talking to us. Till the next time, I think I need to get you on air again sometime soon to talk about the whole WikiLeaks saga. I know it's been in the media for a long, long time, but I think still worth digging into it. But you have yourself a wonderful day, and thank you indeed for your valuable time.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Good morning.
That was Dr. Tshepo Mvulane, an amazing guest to have had on the show this morning. Hope that he's got your, thought process in overdrive to start just trying to get your mind around all of these issues, inshallah. Hope you've enjoyed that interview as much as I've enjoyed hosting the guest on the show this morning. 8:44 exactly, do stand by. We'll be going for an ad break, and when we come back, we're crossing over to Palestine to Professor Jeff Halper.
Durban, KwaZulu-Natal,